Start. Thanks everyone for joining. We are very excited today to announce the 0.8 release and do the demo. Before that, just an update. It's great to see new faces. So thanks for joining, and hopefully we can leave some room at the end of the meeting, and we can introduce ourselves as well. I'm Harsha. I'm one of the engineers working on OpenMetadata. I have the team, and I have Shannon, who helps us with docs as well as demos and all whatnot. So that's about it. So we do a monthly release. So this is our from 0.7 we released on December 20th. Now we are doing 0.8. So to summarize some of the high-level features that we're developing in 0.8 is the eventing, which is the metadata events that we worked on in 0.7. Now we built a consumers and a queue within the OpenMetadata that allows you to kind of read these events. So we're going to show off, how the Slack integration comes out. Then the next thing is the policy, access control policies that's added by Matt, who's on call as well. We're going to demo how that works. And then a bunch of stuff about ingestion and improvements to the profiler. So I think that's about it. Maybe we can kick off as people are coming in, but maybe Shannon, should we kick off the demo?
Yeah, sounds good. Okay, can everyone, Harsha, do I have permission to share?
I'm just checking. Yeah, I enable it. Can you try that?
Great. Okay. All right. Thanks, everyone, for joining today. My name is Shannon Bradshaw. I'm going to demo a few of the key features from the 0.8 release. So just want to confirm that everyone can see my screen okay, and is the font large enough? Anybody need it bigger?
Looks good.
Could be a little larger.
All right. Okay. Alrighty. So what we're going to look at here first is I have a 0.7.1 install of OpenMetadata up and running. And the first thing we're going to take a look at is upgrading to the 0.8 release. So to do this, you'll hit the releases page, and to save us a little bit of time, I have already grabbed the release binary for 0.8, and I want to walk through the process of updating. So first thing I'm going to do is stop my running instance of 0.7.1. So let me just go ahead and do that. And just bear with me for a sec. Oops. There we go. Okay, stop the running instance. Now back here. Okay, so first thing I want to do is mention a new feature that we have, which will it's part of the ingestion framework, and this will allow you to grab a backup of the OpenMetadata database before you kick off the process of upgrading to a new release. So this is simply a backup. The name of it is backup. I will install it here. All right. And then I can use this extra for our metadata package. To grab a backup. All right. And what this has done is dumped a backup here of my currently running MySQL database. So when I stopped the OpenMetadata server, I did not stop MySQL or Elasticsearch running in the background. So using backup, I was able to grab a dump of the OpenMeta backend database. Okay. So now, with that done, the first thing that we need to do is migrate the schemas for our database. And we can use the Bootstrap storage script and the migrate all function to make that happen. So again, here, at the release binary here, all right, and then the Bootstrap subdirectory, I'm going to run migrate all to update the schemas in preparation for the 0.8 release. Now, to do this, you do need to be running the version of the ingestion framework of metadata for the appropriate release. So here we're running the 0.8.1 version of the metadata package. Okay. All right. Next step, since that completed successfully, is I can go ahead and start up the new server. All right, and now I have a new version of the server running. And let's refresh localhost. Oh, no, sorry, not quite yet. I have a new version of the server running. But what I'm going to need to do is rerun the indexing in Elasticsearch over the new schema for the backend database. So first thing I want to do is install the latest version of the Elasticsearch extra. Okay, and then I can go ahead and use metadata ingest to update the indexes for this newest version of OpenMetadata. Okay. So with that done, then I can reload, and we do see that it looks a little bit different. And in fact, I am running the latest version of OpenMetadata here. All right. Okay, so that's the basic process for updating to the latest version of OpenMetadata. The next thing I'd like to go ahead.
Just to give some context, so I think there are a lot of newer members joined. So we are doing a monthly release, right? So we started with 0.3 in August of 2021. Now we are at 0.8. So we are evolving and we're moving fast. But we do want to give an option for our users, other community members who are running this in production, an easier way to upgrade to newer versions. So what Shannon demoed right now is, hey, you have 0.7 running, a lot of user data and a lot of your metadata is already there, everything going smooth, but you want to grab new stuff. This is like without any issues, you are able to migrate all of your data existing safely to a newer version without any breakage. So that's something that we want to kind of bake in every release, make sure that all of our community can get the new stuff without any issues. Yeah, Sure. Yeah, please continue.
Great. Thanks for that, Harsha. Okay, so the first new feature that I'd like to demo in 0.8 is the Slack integration. So, but let's talk a little bit about versioning in Open Metadata to date. So, because our Slack integration is going to allow us to get allow us to configure how we get notifications as changes are made to existing metadata. So if we take a look at any of the assets, any of the entities that we have in Open Metadata, we have access to version information for any of those. And as changes are made to any of these entities, okay, I'll see a version update in the UI. Version events are created, and you can use the API to grab events as they happen. They're also available here in the UI with Open Metadata 0.8 release. We now have the ability to pay attention to version updates in Slack. All right, so a big theme with this particular release is collaboration, involvement by data consumers and others in the process of developing and curating metadata. So you'll see that a number of the features that we look at are related to that overall theme, and this is the first one. So what I've done here is I have a Slack channel in Open Metadata, in the Open Metadata Slack that I've set up. You can do the same within your own environment. And what I'm going to do is set up an integration for Open Metadata so that any changes to entities are published as notifications in that channel. So using the Slack API, I'll go in and create an app, and I'll use the from scratch feature, and I just need to give it a name. Right. And then pick a workspace and then create the app. All right. Then I'm going to be using an incoming webhook for this. So I need to activate incoming webhooks for this app. All right. And then I want to add this webhook to my workspace. All right. And the channel that I'm going to use is the one that I just showed. Okay. Now with that done, I'm connected for purposes of Slack, but what I need to do at this point is connect the Open Metadata instance that I have running locally to this Slack integration that I've just created, this via the incoming webhook. Okay, so to do that, I need to add one entry to the config file for Open Metadata. So for Slack event publishers, with respect to configuration, I do need to provide, I can have as many as I like. So I can configure different Slack integrations that publish, say, different event types. I might want to have one integration, for example, that only shows entities created or perhaps deleted. For others, maybe I only want to see updates in a given channel. So with my configuration, I can simply create a version of this entry for each one of those integrations, and just supply the appropriate webhook to ensure that I've got the right plumbing set up. All right, so I'm going to copy that webhook URL that I just created, save the configuration. All right, and then I'm going to stop and restart the OpenMetadata server. Okay, so now what I expect to see happening is for any events that I create by, say, updating metadata, I should expect to see those events show up in Slack, provided I did everything correctly. So first thing I'll do is I'll follow this particular table. All right, and then we'll go into Slack, and we can see, although it's teeny tiny, all right. So the default user for the local instance is this Aaron Johnson user. And you can see that I started following that raw customer table, and that is in fact being reflected here in the Slack channel that we're publishing events to via the webhook. Okay. If I was to update a description, all right. So then I'll see that there was an update published for this table to this channel as well. We're seeing anonymous here because we haven't set up a fully secure environment, and this is just one way of providing a little bit of a barrier against that. We'll have in a fully secured environment, you'll see the username published to the channel for all events. Harsha, please correct me if I missed something there.
Yeah, that's right. So do you want to go to the sandbox beta and demo that? We can show in the sandbox OM events, the real usernames.
Sure. Okay, so here I am in the sandbox. All right. Actually, let me hit it from here. Okay. So go into tables there. All right. And then all right, so and you can see that it's got my username and the fact that I made an update to the public venue. So what I did there was just switch to the publicly available sandbox and make a very similar sort of change that is then being pushed out to this Slack channel as a notification.
So what we're demoing is more about descriptions and tags and other things, right? So think of the larger events such as entity schema it's updated. For example, in this case, we have a venue as a table. Someone deleted a column or someone kind of changed the type of the column. We want to get a notification to all the users who are consuming that venue, right? So they know, hey, upstream table is changed, some schema is changed. I need to be aware. I need to go around and fix, my pipelines or whatnot. So this is not just, just sending a notification, but, you can actually tune this to make it more about like schema changes. I want to get more urgent notifications to a different group. If something is deleted, I want to notify my consumers downstream as well. So that's the integration that we are going with right now with the Slack.
Great, thanks, Harsha. Okay, so one other new feature that's related to what we've been talking about here is prior to the 0.8 release, versioning was implemented for tables. At this point now, we have versioning implemented across all asset types. So that includes topics, dashboards. Okay, note that there are versions. The version UI is set up. Version events are being captured and published for all entity types. And this extends to pipelines as well. Okay, have done quite a bit of work with respect to versioning in this latest release of OpenMetadata. Versioning on all entities. We've got the Slack integration, and the next feature that I'd like to take a look at has to do with entity deletion. Okay, so prior to this release, if I deleted an entity and ran an ingestion, then what I would see is that entity disappear from metadata, from my ability to interact with its metadata. So in this latest release, we have implemented a feature that for entities that are deleted, you can optionally toggle them on in the UI so that you can look at any metadata for those deleted entities, essentially see the history for deleted entities. So on my local machine, I have, so here's the toggle, right? Right now, there are no matching assets, all right? I have a Postgres instance running that has one table here, site user. And what I'm going to do is go in and just drop that table and then ingest the metadata again. And we'll take a look at how the UI updates accordingly. All right, so I'm going into Postgres and I'm dropping the table. Okay. And then what I'm going to need to do is ingest the Postgres data again. And I'll just go ahead and do that manually. So I'll ensure that I have the Postgres extra installed here as part of my ingestion framework. Okay. And then I'm going to use the ingestion framework to manually ingest the data from my Postgres instance. This Postgres.json file is a config file that tells the ingestion framework how to talk to my Postgres instance, but also allows me to specify filters and the like on exactly what I'd like to see ingested. Okay. So with that, then, if I return, note that Postgres disappeared from the services that provide tables in my UI as I reloaded. But if I show deleted, we can see that that table that I had previously is still available to me, and I can still take a look at any of the metadata for that. All right. If I take a look at the version history, what I'm seeing here is that the only change that has been captured for metadata for this particular entity is that it was deleted. Okay, so matching what we've seen so far to date.
So some context here again, when the physical table is getting deleted, right? So let's start with the life cycle, right? So users create a table, the tables are ingested, and you have teams collaborating around that tables, updating descriptions, whatnot. Later, the table is deleted. We don't want to kind of completely delete the metadata as a first step. What we are doing is a soft deletion. So, soft deletion will not list the tables by default. You can go, as Shannon showed, you can, click the show deleted and you'll get it. The reason for that is the data that is getting collected, we don't want to, the metadata, the rich metadata that you're getting collected, we don't want to, take that out just because an event occurred, right? Like a deletion. we want to give chance for administrator or the users to restore the table in case if there's an accidental table deletion, and all the metadata that you collect over the however months and years is not completely vanished. So that's the reasons we're going with this methodology.
Great. And are there any questions on that?
I think there is a question I'm going to read out loud. How long are those deleted entities available for read access? Is there a TTL? So the deleted tables is the one that we are showing is the metadata only in OpenMetadata. So those are available indefinitely, up to you. How do you want to kind of delete and stuff? So we are also actually working on lifecycle policies and stuff. So it will be an interesting mash between lifecycle management there and how we can kind of automatically delete this and put a TTL around this metadata as well.
Yeah, I think this is something that we'll open a PR on. Would love to get your feedback on. So a couple of things, right? The deleted entities will have some kind of a retention period. You can set up a retention period and then, it will get deleted. So that is something that we are thinking of. We'll put our, thoughts on how the functionality would look like, and, you would love to get your feedback.
Okay. All right. So the next feature that I'd like to take a look at as part of the 08 release has to do with lineage, data lineage. So let's take a look at the raw customer table. All right. And at lineage for this. Okay. So I mentioned a few minutes ago that a big theme of this release is enabling the user community around metadata in an organization to contribute to the curation of that metadata in increasing in a variety of ways. And in this release, we're adding a few more capabilities. So in this case, we're looking at a lineage graph here for the raw customer table. And you can see that there's a product ETL pipeline that is producing other tables. Okay, so as a user, I might have additional information about some data lineage that I would like to use to augment this layout, to augment the lineage metadata. So I can do that by, in the lineage interface, clicking the edit button. And this is going to bring up for me tables, pipelines, and dashboards that I can use to augment the lineage metadata for this table. So in this case, I want to, I know that the dim address ETL also uses this raw customer table. So I'm going to drop that as a node onto this lineage graph and then create the linkage between this table and the ETL pipeline. Okay. I could do the same thing by adding, I could add a table and accomplish a similar task. I could add a dashboard and do something similar there as well. But the basic idea here is that having done this now, if I reload, all right, that addition that I made then becomes part of the lineage graph, the lineage metadata for this table. And you can see that the lineage that was already being maintained for this ETL pipeline also becomes part of the overall lineage graph. Okay.
So important.
Harsha, something you want to add there?
Yeah, important thing to observe here is the power of APIs. So we are saying from our foundation story itself, right? So we are building the metadata system based on the APIs and schemas. So we build in 0.7 lineage APIs that we use through the metadata ingestion framework to extract the lineage from different systems like Superset, Airflow, by analyzing the query logs and everything else. So that's the automated way of constructing the lineage. Now, we want to get the people's input as well into the lineage. That's where your data collaboration comes into play. You can see the foundation laying coming through that collaboration aspect. One of that is Slack integration that we showed earlier. Now we are coming here and giving a no-code editor where anyone can come and drag and drop and build a lineage based on their knowledge, the knowledge of the people who are kind of building over the years. That's not captured anywhere, can come into OpenMetadata through the collaboration aspects. And manual lineage editor is one of the first thing that anyone has done in these aspects. So, and we are really excited to have this in this release.
Yeah, I mean, the additional thing is lineage is something that, not every system provides. But, if you already know, DIM product is what is generating a metric or a dashboard and things like that, you can now start capturing human knowledge.
Are you taking questions?
Yeah. Yes,
yeah. So what is the starting point? Because I think lineage becomes like it's a many-to-many and different type of assets, right? What is the starting point typically for this? Because what I'm seeing in the screen right now, it's inside raw customer, right? Mm-hmm. But if it is multiple tables constituting multiple ETLs, populating multiple target tables, how would those complexity and visualization be dealt with? I mean, one is the data and one is the visualization.
So if you can add as many ETLs and tables into this graph. So your starting point is this, right? You know something about raw customer, right? So let's say, if you look at our demo, right? We knew that DIM address uses raw customer. That information is not there. Either you can go to a DIM address, which you know about, and add raw customer there as the source. Or when somebody who is who owns raw customer knows that, hey, my table is used by DIM address guys to generate it. That guy can add DIM address. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
The owner of DIM address can say, hey, this guy is upstream of me, and so he's capturing his knowledge about the data that he owns. The same way raw customer can actually say, hey, these are downstreams for me, and he can capture that as well.
And does it go as far as column level lineage, Suresh?
Not yet. We are looking at building column level lineage support.
Okay.
Any other questions? Okay. All right. So at this point, what I'd like to do is, because the rest of the features that I want to show you here are more easily illustrated in the sandbox. So I am going to switch to using the sandbox. So I'm no longer using my local instance, but have moved over to our sandbox instance. And there are a couple of things that I want to talk about. One has to do with user roles. And the other, the last feature that we'll look at is some updates to our ingestion flow. But given the questions we just had with respect to lineage and user curation of metadata, let's go ahead and take a look at some of the updates having to do with roles and policies. So in this release, we've added the ability to define roles within the OpenMetadata admin interface. All right, so in this window, I'm logged in as a administrator for this deployment of OpenMetadata. And at the moment, I'm taking a look at the data consumer role. Here we also have defined a data steward and a data test role. If I want to add a role, I can do so using the add a role feature. simply create a name and display name and description. And then I can go about creating policies for that particular role. In this case, I'm simply going to use what we have here already to illustrate the policies, creating a policy based on rules. Okay, so the way that this particular policy is organized, we have a data consumer role, and we're specifying individual rules for that role. The rules are fairly straightforward, all having to do with metadata. If I were to add a new rule here, I can select from among operations. And in this case, maybe I want to provide the ability to update owner. Okay. And I can either explicitly deny or allow this particular activity, this particular action. All right. So this rule would either enable or disallow anyone with the data consumer role from assigning ownership to any entity in OpenMetadata. You can save that. That becomes part of the policy for a data consumer. All right. I can toggle these rules on and off here in the UI. And I can edit any of these rules to say change from allow to deny. Okay. Likewise, if I want to get rid of a rule, I can certainly do that as well. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and change this back to allow. All right. And then let's take a look at how we use this role in the OpenMetadata interface. So to do this, I'm going to pull up the list of users, and I'm going to search for my alter ego here. And what I'd like to do here is assign this user to the data consumer role, that role that we were just looking at. All right, I'll go ahead and save that. Okay, so in this window, all right, I'm logged in as that user. And let me refresh the page here. I was afraid of that. Okay. So I'll log in as that user. Okay. And we can see that I've been added to the role data consumer here if I take a look at my profile. Okay. So now let's take a look at capabilities that I have as part of this role. So again, if we take a look at roles, okay, users with the data consumer role have the ability to update descriptions, update tags, and update lineage. All right. I'm currently on a lineage page here. I want to edit the lineage here. And in this case, I'm going to drop in another table. All right, and I'm going to set up an additional element of this graph, okay, using the UI. And if I reload this, all right, we see that that did become part of the lineage graph for this table. All right, now, if I go back to data consumer and, oh, sorry, I always make that mistake. Go in and deny the ability to update Lineage. Okay. Then if I go back as my user with the data consumer role, now when I go in here and let's say I want to delete that Lineage relationship that I just created. Okay. Some UI improvements could be made here, but we get notification that we are unable to make this change. I just made it as a data consumer, but because we've changed the policy for this particular role, now that operation is disallowed. And if I reload this page, we see that that node is still there as part of Lineage. So policies allow us to, roles and policies are going to allow us to have much more fine-grained control over the ways in which the members of an organization can interact with, update, and participate in the open metadata curation efforts. Okay. Harsha, anything you want to add to that?
No. Yeah, I think that looks great.
Okay. Terrific. Okay. The last bit then that I'd like to show has to do with our ingestion flows. Prior to this release of OpenMetadata, we had separated data services from setting up ingestions for those services. So what we've done with this release is integrated those two pieces of functionality around metadata ingestion to provide a more streamlined workflow and again, this is based on some user feedback and also just based on the overall product roadmap. So in this case, what I'm talking about here is if we take a look at any of the data that's here, whether it's tables or topics, there is a service from which we are ingesting metadata to provide any of the entities, to create any of the entities and the associated metadata with those entities. So with topics, we've got Kafka as a service that we're using to ingest entities from, etc. So the ingestion updates here in the 08 version of OpenMetadata enable us to configure ingestion from a service all as part of one workflow. So what I'm going to do here is demonstrate setting up ingestion from AWS Redshift. There might be multiple Redshift instances that you're ingesting from. You can see that we're already ingesting from a couple. We're going to set up a third here. All right. All right, so just giving it a name and a description. All right, and then I am going to go back in and pull up my, sorry, one moment. Just need to find the right window.
So while Shannon is doing that, so the idea here is like you can have this service up and running immediately. You can go to services page, create, enumerate all your services. Let's say you have Hive running or BigQuery, Snowflake, Redshift. You can come here, create the service name, that is kind of close to what you call the cluster in your environment, and give the connection details and extract the metadata in one go and have this ready, right? So we want to make that experience really simple and straightforward.
Okay. So I will just get all of the details set up for the service itself, for the connection. All right, and then here we can specify ingestion configuration parameters. Specifically, I can filter schemas, tables, etc. In this case, we'll add one for filtering out any schemas that begin with information underscore schema, since those. I'm sorry, say that again.
Remove the double quotes there.
Okay. Okay, and then we can decide whether we want to enable the profiler. Do we want to bring in sample data? Do we want to include views or not? These then all become toggles in this interface. And you'll see that for those of you who are familiar with open metadata ingestion, what we're beginning to see here is that this is looking increasingly like the way that you run ingestions manually. There's a lot of overlap between the config files and what we're seeing in the UI. Okay. I'm going to leave those settings at the defaults. We would also then set up the ingestion calendar, the frequency with which data is being ingested. And then go ahead and save it. So now what's happened is we've created a new service and created some ingestion workflows that will be kicked off in our Airflow instance that we have for the service. And here is that workflow running right here. The tasks have kicked off.
You can click on the
Okay.
logs and
Sorry?
show them. We can show the metadata that's getting collected right now.
Okay.
I think from Explore you can probably do that. Yeah. So this is the DAG that is kind of deployed on the Airflow, and it's running every few minutes already. So we can go back to the Explore and see all the tables that are in this cluster already showing up. So tables, yeah. So if you click the Redshift, we might have, we're testing a lot of same connections again. We probably see a lot of same tables, but previously we used to have 72. Now we have 88 new tables that I got extracted. And if you go to the same service again, Shen, settings services to the
services.
one. Yeah, click on that one. Click the ingestions. So it's kind of showing the status, what's happening right now. Since we set the start to be a little earlier, it's trying to catch up all those dates. So from here, you can either do a on-demand click run, so that whenever if an ingestion workflow failed for whatever reason, your external service is not available, then you can on-demand click this and get the extracted data as well.
Okay. Last thing that I wanted to show you all is the new tour functionality that has been built into this release. This allows us, by clicking the tour icon up here in the right corner, one step at a time,
just
to
one
get it.
before
Go
we
ahead.
go there.
Yep.
So we have received comments about, hey, this is great. UI is, makes sense to us because we are the data people and everything, but we want this particular open metadata to be used by across the company. So people who kind of use the data but not familiar with, what is metadata and everything else. And we built tour option so that, all your users within your company can learn from the tool how the access important assets in open metadata, how to navigate the UI. And the great thing about this tool is it's configurable option. Right now we built one, we can keep adding as we keep adding functionality, specific targeted tools as well for the users to learn from it.
So there will be different workflows, right? This is a generic workflow introduction to open metadata. Then we can have another workflow for specifically targeted for, let's say, how to use data profiles and things like that. So so this becomes a way of introducing our open metadata to your community of users. Go ahead, Shyam.
Great. So in the current version of the tour, essentially we step through the different key features of the UI. You can go backward and forward. Here we can explore all of our data assets. In this case, highlighting the activity feed that is showing as part of your homepage, all of the metadata activity that's going on in this deployment. Introducing users to the search UI, and even providing some suggestions about what to do in this interface. All right.
Certain actions tell the users, hey, how to use search, how to use profiler, how to use manual lineage editor. Like it will prompt you, and it will engage the users who are kind of going through the tool to make them understand the interface much more cleanly, and guides them through that. Go ahead, Sean.
So this is a much richer version, effectively, of a animated GIF that might show someone how to use a particular interface. In this case, it's a little bit interactive, giving you as a user the a little bit of an experience of using the user interface, as well as some in-product documentation to help guide your understanding. And this tour really does a nice job of walking you through all of the different aspects of the open metadata user interface, with nice descriptions for everything that we're seeing in the UI. So if you are new to open metadata, this is a great way to get a really quick tour of it, and then leverage the documentation to explore more deeply. If you are already familiar, as Harsha said, this is a great way to introduce other people in your organization or other colleagues to the to open metadata and the capabilities that it provides. All right, and with that, I will conclude my demo and turn it back over to Harsha.
Thanks for that. I think one thing we didn't talk about is the profiler. So the UI kind of seems familiar as previous versions, but we improved the profiler performance, and right now it runs across the table, not just the sampling of few columns like we did previously. So that's an improvement, and that's a stepping stone for to bring the data quality aspects into the next versions. And as you can see, we have a lot of things packed here in 0.8 release, and we are super thrilled that we were able to make this release in timely manner with all the features that we talked about so far. I hope some of those got excited for you and kind of talks to your use cases as well. And please participate in our Slack channels, give any feedback. And we are, as we said earlier, we are doing a monthly release. If you want to influence our roadmap, it's the right time to engage. And we're looking forward to your contributions and your feedback. Lastly, one thing, all the budding projects and the new projects that in GitHub gets eyes is through the trending newsletter that GitHub sends out, and that depends on how many stars we get. So please highly encourage you guys to kind of, if you haven't already done, go to GitHub, and if you like what we are doing, star us and recommend to your colleagues in your network. This will help the project quite a bit. I think any questions, we are happy to take any questions from here onwards in the release.
Thank you, Richard.
All right. It's not, again, please come to Slack, participate, give us your feedback. That's extremely important for us. So we're looking forward to working with you guys. And
There is a question, Asha, from Richard.
so
Just is the latest version available yet? Can we go and download it? Yeah, okay, great.
we have a Docker too, so probably easier for you to set up Metadata. Let me put the link here on how to start that. So the best place to go to is docs.openmetadata.org, open-metadata.org. So we put a lot of effort. Shannon is helping quite a bit and doing an awesome job there. So I would start there. Try OpenMetadata is the place. We also have a sandbox that will get up.
Great, thank you.
So left a link in the channel, Zoom chat.
Okay. Harsha, is that wrap up?
Yeah, thanks everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone.
you.
Bye-bye.